DraftKings, the official betting partner of Boot Crew Media. Let's talk a little Pelicans. Let's talk a little Saints. New Orleans is a basketball city and a football city, obviously. The Pelicans prove that. But the guy who knows everything about the Saints is Chris. How do you say your last name, bro?
Rosvoglou. It's almost like a Derrick Rose and then add a bow and then a glue and then put it all together.
One more time.
Rosvoglou.
Rosvoglou.
There you go.
You gotta say it real fast. And you say it so fast when you introduce yourself when you start your podcast.
I can just jump right into it, right?
I'm like, you can't just make it sound so easy, dude. Rosvoglou.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, good deal. So Chris Olave, not Chris Rosvoglou. Rosvoglou. Chris Olave and Trevor Penning are the Saints' first round picks. We traded up to get Olave at 11. I listened to your podcast last night. One thing that really interested me, Chris, is Brooke, another tough last name to pronounce, Brooke Kirchhoffer of WWL, who I met at the Zurich Classic. She's a really talented journalist. She's going to be coming on the show next week. She had a one-on-one with Olave in Vegas after he got drafted, and she asked him, what does it mean to you that the Saints did that extra effort to trade up to get you? And he said, that's just going to make me want to go even harder. Just from that perspective, as you've seen over the years, right, of teams trading up to get a guy, and the connection, obviously, the New Orleans Buckeyes, as some of my friends have called us. What does that mean to you that we made that extra effort, we got our guy, and we kind of answered the call and the most necessary need of getting that star wide receiver?
Yeah, I think it goes to that last part you said, need of wide receiver. And I think for the Saints, you're sitting there at 16 and you see Drake London goes 8 to the Falcons. And then 2 picks later, Garrett Wilson goes 10 to the Jets. And there's no way the Saints weren't thinking there in their draft war room, like, oh, it's fine. Olave will make it to 16 or Jameson Williams will make it to 16. Like, no, they sat there and they said, okay, the run's starting now. We got to get ahead of the curve. They called, Washington was willing to make the move. And yeah, did they give up assets, a 3rd round pick, a 4th round pick? Sure. But if Olave is their guy, and from everything they've been saying he is, it's worth making that move if you think you got the guy that's going to come in here and kind of fix your receiving core and get your offense on the right track. And I'm ecstatic about it because you get one of those top receivers that Saints fans have been wanting, and he's a perfect scheme fit across from Michael Thomas. And then, for the fact that the Saints came to grips with the terms that they need to fix that receiving room, I think that's a big thing. Because I remember last year, especially in the 1st and 2nd round, a lot of Saints fans were watching and they're like, are we really not going to address wide receiver? And it just never ended up happening. They ended up waiting. Michael Thomas misses the whole season. Then we obviously saw what a mess that position group was relative to what we expect from the New Orleans Saints. So for them to address that problem and do it in the 1st round, the way they did was special, because then you saw after pick 11, Jameson Williams, the Lions trade up and get him. Washington takes Jahan Dotson at 16, Burks at 18 to the Titans. So wide receivers are coming off the board quick. So I give the Saints a lot of credit for being proactive and moving ahead of the curve.
Yeah, and I don't know if Madden, future rankings, these guys that go in and make these really kind of detailed, 2024 draft class, rankings on Madden. I don't know how accurate those are, right? But I remember Jahan Dotson being, when I used to play Madden a lot, being a guy that was a superstar X Factor player on Madden. Is he a guy that you see being kind of a sleeper wide receiver from this draft class? Not so much a sleeper, but obviously guys, as you mentioned, went before him. Do you think he could be just as good, if not maybe the best rookie wide receiver along with Olave in this draft class?
If he is, then credit to Washington for finding like the perfect role to stick him in. And I will say that the benefit to him landing with Washington is Terry McLaurin's going to get most of the looks, and I'd imagine Curtis Samuel gets another good amount of looks. So he shouldn't really have to face any type of tough coverages. There'll be a lot of one-on-one stuff, and I think he'll be able to thrive in that department. My question for him is the frame part. He is a guy that's 5'11", and for receivers, Olave, people consider him a small frame. He's 6'1" at least. He does have those 2-inch advantage, which should help. So I don't mind the pick. Is it maybe a little bit too early for me? Sure, compared to what you'll see in mocks and whatnot, but I thought he
Right.
was a first round talent nonetheless. And I'd imagine had he slid out of the top 20, a team like the Packers with 2 picks in, 22 and 28, I'd
Right.
imagine he would have ended up there anyway. So I don't mind the pick at all. I'm curious if they can find, Washington find a way to get really good usage over him in the slot and figure out ways to make sure that you're maximizing his skill set. I don't know if he would be the best in this class. I think in terms of immediate day one impact, I actually think it's going to be one of these Ohio State Buckeyes, whether it's Wilson or Olave. I just think they're going to just hit the ground running and just be able to have a really smooth start to their career. But if you told me Dotson ends up having a really long, successful career, I wouldn't be surprised because I do see a little bit of Randall Cobb to his game. And we know Randall Cobb's been able to stick around for a long time. And if Washington ends up getting Randall Cobb with the 16th pick, I think they would take that every day of the week in terms of, prime Randall Cobb. So I think he'll be a good player. I don't know if I would necessarily say he'll be the sleeper from the bunch. I actually think the sleeper from the bunch might come up on day 2.
Mhm.
But I do think that Dotson will be a fine football player in this league.
Okay, I want to continue to talk about Olave here and the frame that you kind of mentioned. I do want to get into Trevor Penning, but I know you only have 10 to 15 minutes. So my big question when it comes to frame and position, talk to me from a layperson's perspective of I don't really know a lot about Olave and how he might be placed in the Saints offense. Talk to me about, I know you mentioned 6'1". I think he's only 175. Do you think he drastically gets up to a clean 200 and becomes kind of a even more muscular guy? And where do you see him playing the majority of snaps, in the slot position? And what kind of receiver do you see him being in a Dennis Allen, right, offense with Jameis Winston under center? Do you see him being a slant slot guy, or what do you see him doing? Is he a down, out and up guy that we're going to hit down the field? What do we expect to see, the kind of routes and the kind of positions from Olave?
Well, I think in terms of routes, Saints fans should expect everything. I don't think there's a player in this draft who has a more polished route tree at this juncture. Like, obviously, what you get now might not be what they are in 2, 3, 4 years from now. But as of right now, he is without a doubt the best route runner in this class. So I wouldn't worry about, what routes he can or can't run. I think the whole tree is available to a guy like him. But as for the usage, I think he's really an outside receiver. I think he's going to be a perimeter target for them. And, a lot of his success that you've seen in his Ohio State career, it's those deep posts. It's just the ability to go down the field and stretch. And with a quarterback like Jameis Winston, in terms of arm strength, capable of doing that, I think that's a perfect fit. And, what am I concerned that he is around that 180 mark? Yeah, sure. It's a little bit of a concern, but can you bump him up to the 190s, maybe mid 190s? I think he could definitely do that. And he doesn't need to be Michael Thomas. He doesn't need to be that 6'3", guy who's like about 215, has a lot of muscle on him.
Right.
He doesn't need to be that, and that's fine. Especially the fact that I don't think you're going to have to worry about him taking all those hits over the middle of the field that you would maybe a slot receiver. So I think he's going to be a guy that you're going to use as a vertical threat for a lot of routes. Obviously, the whole tree is going to be open. So if you want to use him on slants, that's totally fine. If you want him on out routes, you can do that too. But I do think you're going to see a lot of plays downfield with him, because that's kind of where he specializes, the ability to kind of create separation, whether it's his route running, his ability to just glide downfield. I think Saints fans, they'll probably catch that immediately when they start watching anything Chris Olave based. You're going to notice that he never looks like he's running full speed. He almost kind of glides like Alvin Kamara, in the sense that, are you running full speed or are you not? And then you kind of watch Olave do the 40 and you're like, okay, that speed's legit. Like, it's incredible. So he'll be an outside guy. I think he's a perfect fit because Michael Thomas is that dude who can handle those hits over the middle of the field. And who knows, maybe the Saints go out and get a guy like Jarvis Landry, and that's another player who will take pressure off of Olave in terms of, don't worry, we're going to handle the middle of the field stuff. You be the perimeter guy on the outside. So I love the idea of adding him to this offense.
Let's switch perspectives here to Michael Thomas. Obviously, the Ohio State Buckeye connection. We saw their back and forth on Twitter. They're both excited to work with each other. Olave said firsthand he's pumped to go to work and work alongside a former Buckeye in Michael Thomas. There is a a section of Saints fans that are still concerned about Michael Thomas, be it attitude, be it injury, be it effort, all in. Are you at all concerned about that? What do you make of kind of, him sending that message last year that he was, done for the season? And do you think, I guess my thought was this is good because a young guy's going to come in. They have this Ohio State Buckeye connection. And I think this is only going to add not so much pressure, but motivation from Michael Thomas's end to be more of a leader, more of a mentor, and more of an all-in kind of, I play for the New Orleans Saints. I'm Michael Thomas. I'm the wide receiver number one, and I'm going to work alongside Chris Olave and make us the best possible receiving core we can be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what he'll do from a motivation perspective because Mike is one of those guys. He's a one of one in the sense that he's always working, and I would imagine all those frustrating moments, whether it was the way he handled his injury or maybe the things that he tweeted people didn't like. I think people have to remember when you're Michael Thomas and all you know is compete, and you can't because you're injured. You're going to let out that frustration. Maybe you might let it out in a way that's not better than most. Maybe other people know how to channel a little bit better. So I think that was all just a really tough moment for him to grasp. And the fact that it lingered so long, I'd imagine he was probably sitting there like, okay, when am I going to be ready? When am I going to be ready? And he thought he could work through it, didn't work through it, had that setback. So I look at him now, the fact that he did restructure his deal to the sense where the Saints are committing more money to him down the road, which means they're ready to commit to him for a couple more years, that Dennis Allen met with him in the offseason to kind of sit down, make sure they're on good terms. The fact that he's constantly tweeting about the Saints now. I know people might think it doesn't matter, but we live in an age where social media does matter. Every move you make on social media, it's telling. Remember, Kyler Murray scrubs his social media account. People lose their minds. It's every move they make is important. So when I see him there constantly tweeting about the Saints, talking about getting to work with Chris Olave, I think it is him, like you said, all in. I think he is all in, at least for the 2022 season, on being the best player he can be for the New Orleans Saints. Now, will it give him a motivation factor? Like, I'm happy that Olave's here, but I'm still the number one wide receiver. I don't know. Maybe in his head, he might do that. He might have a little Tom Brady psychology going on there to get him going. But I think he is 110% bought in on the Saints moving forward. And now it's just a matter if he could stay healthy. And if he stays healthy, what Michael Thomas are we getting? Because if it is all pro Michael Thomas, all of a sudden the Saints offense is looking vastly different from what we saw last year. And that would be a great thing for this team, especially because the NFC is not that strong right now. There are a lot of teams that took a step back in the offseason. Could the Saints take a step forward? Only time will tell. But I do feel very good, at least from a mentality standpoint. Where's Michael Thomas at with the Saints? Mm-hmm. I think Saints fans don't have to worry, at least for this season, about whether or not there'll be bad blood.
Love that. Yeah, no, I'm aware of jumping too soon on Twitter. I learned my lesson.
That's everyone, man.
So last thought on Olave, and then just a quick final thought on Penning. Do you think in the world that we live in with the NFL of stacked receiving cores, the Cincinnati Bengals being a perfect example, I would say a primary reason they made it to the Super Bowl this year is because of their stacked receiving core. Do you think, not to get too greedy, but could you kind of break down our remaining draft picks, what you saw compared to your mock draft pick before the picks were made last night, and how kind of your mock draft has adjusted? What I'm getting at is, do you think we draft another receiver in this class?
Look, if they're going to draft another receiver, I think there's two options here. I think it's what does the board look like at 49? Because George Pickens is still out there. Christian Watson's still out there. Alec Pierce is still out there. Sky Moore is still out there. So there are a lot of options. There are options. If one's there at 49, I think you have to consider, I think Alec Pierce from Cincinnati is the perfect, just strictly a deep threat that you can maybe develop into a full wide receiver, because he's a guy that's 6'3" with 4.4, 140 speed. That's hard to coach. You can't coach that. So he's an interesting guy. But I would say, and this is something that I'm not saying is going to happen, but it does make a lot of sense if it does. Mm-hmm. I could see the Saints on day 3. Now, they only have 2 day 3 picks because they did trade that 4th rounder yesterday to move up to get Olave. If Velus Jones from Tennessee is in there on day 3, if the Saints want to add another receiver, he makes a lot of sense. Reason being, the Saints signed his former wide receiver coach, Cody Burns, to their coaching staff this
Mm.
offseason, and his best college season was under Coach Burns. I wonder if maybe he's in that building lobbying and saying, hey, look, if you go pick 49, let's say they get a safety, right? Like a Jaquan Brisker out of Penn State.
Yep.
They want another weapon. Maybe they bring in Velus Jones. And the Saints have had success with Tennessee players, whether it's Marquez Callaway, Alvin Kamara. They have a good history the last couple of years with that school. So I'm not saying they're going to take another wide receiver, but just because they took Olave doesn't mean we should rule out them taking another, because, you know, they could still use help at that position. And to your point, you mentioned the Bengals. The Bengals, yes, T. Higgins is great, and Jamar Chase, what he did rookie year was special, but they also do have Tyler Boyd, and to have another third weapon in there, that's just something that you need. And I look at teams around the league, whether it's the Bucks, they're constantly trying to get better. They signed Russell Gage this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
The Rams, they signed Allen Robinson, and Van Jefferson's their number 3. It feels like having 2 good receivers in today's NFL almost isn't enough.
I know.
So
isn't that crazy?
It is absurd. The league has completely changed. And if they can get a third one and the value's good, I say why not?
Love that. Love that. I'll save just real quick. Let's say we don't get a wide receiver for the rest of this draft, and we have a 4 wide receiver set with Jameis and shotgun. Who's where as of right now?
That's it. I would say right now, I'd probably, with the way they got it constructed, I'd probably have Callaway and Olave on the outside.
Okay.
I'd probably have Mike on the inside. And I'd probably have Deontay somewhere on the inside as well, too. Now, it depends. If Traquan's in there, I'd slide Traquan on the inside as well. I think he's good enough to handle those balls up the seam. So those are probably – I guess it'll come down to who your 4th. I feel really good about Callaway making the cut there, and then it comes down to Traquan or Deontay. But now, at least they have options, right? It's not like, all right, we just got to throw these 4 out there and that's it.
It's not like we got to sign somebody off the practice squad.
Exactly.
And is Kenny Stills still on the roster?
Not to my knowledge. I'd have to actually check that, but it seems like the days of Kenny Stills are over, which no knock on Kenny Stills. It was fun in 2015. It's not fun now. It's just
yeah. Okay. Final thought for you, Chris, because I know you got to run. There have been discussions in just my own, friend group messages and Boot Crew Media group me, and, on Twitter and around is the quarterback situation. There are people who forget that Jameis Winston was 5-2 before getting injured. Is the fact that we took Trevor Penning, who, by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, is the first ever first-round pick for Northern Iowa. Is that correct?
I believe so. I can't remember the last time a Northern Iowa player's even been on day 1 or day 2.
I saw it on Twitter, so it has to be true, right?
Of course.
So first ever first round pick for Northern Iowa, Trevor Penning. Is he gonna play that left tackle position? And what's your kind of argument that the Saints are now all in on Jameis because they got that offensive lineman for him, and it doesn't seem like they're going to go for a Matt Corral or somebody else, at the quarterback position? Or do you think we're still going to draft a quarterback, but we're all in on Jameis being the starter?
I think it's somewhere in the middle, right? Like, I think that the Saints, they feel like they can win football games with Jameis, which you mentioned before. They were 5-2 before he got hurt, so they clearly can win with him.
Right.
I think a lot of what they did, to me, more so tells me what the Saints think about this quarterback class. Now, they could very well surprise people and take one at 49 tonight. Who knows? I mean, they're pretty much all available except for Kenny Pickett. Mm-hmm. But the Saints kind of told you at 19, that's just too rich for me. And we have to remember, the Saints didn't think Trevor Penning was going to make it to 19. So I think more than anything, they thought this was BPA / attacking a need all in one, which makes the pick in their mind a really great one. But I think when I look at what they're paying Jameis, and I look at how last season went with him playing and what the way this quarterback market turned out, I think the Saints right now are kind of trying to find the best of both worlds, because they can win with Jameis Winston right now. And they also, at the same time, got to find out if A, he can be the future, and B, if he's not, is at least the rest of the roster shaped up pretty well. So if they ever make a quarterback change 2 years from now, 3 years now, whatever, is the roster built well where there are core pieces in place? And getting a guy like Olave and getting a guy like Trevor Penning, if they develop well, those are going to be great pieces to have. So I think the Saints are doing a good job of not pushing the quarterback need if the value doesn't fit. So if they really thought Kenny Pickett was worth the 19th pick, they would have taken him. If they thought Malik Willis was worth the 19th pick, I really think they would have taken them. I don't think Jameis Winston necessarily stopped them from taking quarterback. I just think they thought they're not as valuable at 19 as Trevor Penning would be.
Right.
And that's perfectly okay because they can win football games right now with Jameis Winston.
Final thought, as of right now, one more time, you gave us your 4 wide receiver set. Who is the starting Saints offensive line as of right now? And just a word about Trevor Penning being an absolute mauler.
Yeah, I mean, look, so if we're going week 1, I would say the starting line, if I had to predict as of today, I would go from right to left. I would have Ryan Ramczyk, Cesar Ruiz, Eric McCoy, Andrews Pete, and then I actually would have James Hurst. Now,
okay,
I do think Trevor Penning will start at some point this season. I think that the talent is there for him to be a Pro Bowl left tackle. I just think coming from a small school, there will be an adjustment period. Now, if he comes in and he beats out James Hurst, Saints fans are going to be really, really confident about what this kid might be able to do because James Hurst started a lot of football games this past season. So if he can come in and beat out an actual vet who has experience in the Saints system, that just tells us that he's way further along than anyone could have predicted. And that would be great news. As for why I do like Trevor Penning, to your point, like he plays a violent brand of football. And I think for offensive linemen, you can tell who doesn't and who does and who doesn't have that edge. Trevor Penning has that edge. Now, does he have to dial it back a little bit? Sure, but you rather, like Dennis Allen said, be able to dial it back than have to try and instill that toughness in a player because that's really hard to do. So I think when you look at him, he's got perfect traits in terms of athleticism. He's powerful. He's really fast. Now, is he Teron Armstead fast? No, but he's pretty close relative to what you expect from a left tackle. And you look at his numbers. Yes, it's against lower competition, but only 1 sack allowed. He graded as the top left tackle. The penalties are the only thing that leaves me cause for concern. But I'd imagine when you go to an NFL team, you're going to have a lot better supporting cast. You're going to have a lot better coaches around you. And if they can coach that out of him in terms of being a little bit too grabby and just being too hands-on, I think you're going to have a really good player down the line. So the pick makes a lot of sense. I don't know if he'll start week 1 right now. I'd lean no, just because James Hurst he's a fine player. Like if Penning ends up starting, the Saints' 6th offensive line be James Hurst, who can play all across the line. That's a pretty good unit. So my guess is he doesn't start right away, but I do think the Saints have themselves a player here in Trevor Penning.
I'm going to give you a cheesy catchphrase for your podcast. Got no clue, Rosvoglou.
I'll take it. We got to start putting out shirts somehow, man. So I'll take it.
No doubt. Rosvoglou. Did I get it right?
You got it.
Chris Rosvoglou of the Rosvoglou Report, ROSVOGLOU Report on Twitter. Absolutely killing it, man. Thank you so much for your time. We'll talk again soon. All right, brother?
Appreciate it. Have a good one, man.
Peace and love.